Welcome to Man on the Mic, a place for honest conversations about faith, fitness, family, business, and becoming the person you're called to be. Here, we slow down, ask better questions, and talk with people who are building meaningful lives from the inside out. My hope is simple, that something you hear today gives you clarity, courage, and the push to take your next step. Let's dive in. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Man on the Mic. I am super excited to have a friend of mine on the podcast. I had a chance to go on his podcast and have some really deep conversations. And so we're joined today by my good friend, Taylor Church. And I'd love for him to introduce himself to all of you.
Yes, you got that right. My name is Taylor Church. Basically, I'm a podcaster. I'm an author. I am a coach online. A lot of it's relationship coaching. A lot of people dealing with heartbreak. A lot of people nervous to get back into the dating market after a breakup, after a divorce. And my whole thing is just trying to explore what it means to be human, you know? And so some of that's through my writing, some of it's through podcast episodes, some of it is through just videos I make on my own. But yeah, I'm just interested in the human condition. I'm interested in people's souls. And yeah, I'm interested in sharing things that I've been through and sharing things that my guests have been through. And yeah, I just love it. So that's what I'm here for.
What are you gonna do when you settle down and get married? Is still gonna travel the same? And
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't travel too much.
See yourself staying in Utah forever?
We'll see. I mean, I'd be happy just about anywhere. It's just this is like where all my friends and family are.
Yeah.
That's the main thing, you know. But I don't really appreciate the winters here. But yeah.
Perfect. I went and interviewed for a job in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, we'll provide an apartment for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I talked to my dad about it. He's like, do you want to be in Chicago for the winter?
Right.
And I was like, so I talked him into letting me go remote and spending some time there and time here. Because I'm like, if I could at least stay here. But then I look at like the winter in St. George, Arizona.
Yeah.
And
hard to beat.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I grew up in Arizona.
Okay.
So if like all my people went back to Arizona, I'd be like, great.
Bounce
over there. I don't really have any, besides the people, I don't really have any draw to stay in Utah, but people is like 90% of it. So
yeah. What is it that, I'm super curious, what is it that got you into being a relationship coach?
It kind of happened on accident, really. Like I was just getting, 20, 30 messages a day of people asking for help and advice. And so when it first started happening and it wasn't that many, I would try to answer when I had time, but it just became untenable. So I was talking to my producer and he's like, yeah, well, why don't you do coaching? There's obviously a market for it. And I was like, I didn't even think about it, And then I just kind of threw it up on my story kind of reluctantly, and then immediately people were interested. So yeah, I tell people I don't know that I'm necessarily any more qualified than anybody else. I don't have any actual credentials, but I got a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And just like anything, people connect with different personalities. So some people will love me. Some people might meet with me once and be like, that's not what I need. That's not for me. But,
well, you're also super authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And also you tap into emotions where in a society, we've talked about this before, men are not supposed to show emotion and struggle to do so.
Yeah.
And I think you allow a space where men can become vulnerable and show their emotions.
Right. Yeah. And again, not something I set out to do, but I would say 80% of my clients are women, And so I think a lot of them hear my stuff and feel like, oh, here's a guy that is really in touch with his emotions, is really sensitive, that's the kind of guy I want. So let me talk to him.
Yeah.
See how to find that, you know? Yeah.
What I'm curious, because a lot of the stuff that you talk about and you dive into is one side on healing, the other side is love.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm super curious, is there something in your life that led you to, hey, this is what I'm passionate about? Or is it just a lot of experiences in those two fields?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's anything specific. I think you just go through your own heartbreaks and you experience love, and I don't know, love to me is everything. That's what we're here for. That's what connects everything. So I've always been interested in love, always been a romantic guy, but yeah, then you go through your own healing journey and you're like, wow, if I can help anybody else, great. And I never set out to do that.
Yeah.
I never was like, okay, I want to help people heal, but just by me talking about my experience was helping people heal. So I'm like, this is great. Let's lean into it if it's helping, you know? And I never want people to think that I think I'm a dating expert or a relationship expert. I've never claimed to be an expert. It's more like I'm someone that is comfortable and happy to talk about these things and share my experience. And if it helps you, great. And if you don't align with my philosophy or my takes, that's fine too.
What is your top 3 tips for someone struggling in a relationship?
Well, what are they struggling with?
So, let's say communication.
I would say, to me, the number one thing is people often, they're 6 months into a relationship and all of a sudden these things start coming up and there starts to become really serious resentment and about things that aren't communicated well, And I tell people the problem is often the first few months of a relationship, you don't bring anything up because you don't want any problems. You don't want to ruffle any feathers. And so you let all these little things slide. And then you just kind of get sick of them and start saying, hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you help me? Or why don't you show up? Why don't you text me? And the other person is like, yo, where's this coming from?
Yeah.
So to me, I'm always like, let's communicate all these little things as they're happening in the very beginning. And I want nothing to be so small that it's not communicated or it's not brought up.
Yeah.
And so any little thing that bugs you, bring it up. And it's hard to start fixing a relationship like a year in, and it's not impossible. It's better than nothing. But if you can start a relationship and say, hey, we are going to communicate everything, anything that's bothering you, even if it feels silly or you're just insecure, let's talk about it. And then if we keep talking about it each time, eventually we don't need to bring it up anymore because we've just solved it. We've dealt with the problem. So to me, most communication problems can be solved just by bringing things up,
Okay. I'm super curious because there's a video I was watching and it was Simon Sinek, and he said in a relationship when there's an argument or a fight, he said one of the methods he tells people to try is when you're having a conversation about the problem or the incident or whatever happened, he says to say to your partner, I'm going to say one thing I did wrong,
mm-hmm.
and then say one thing you did right.
Right.
And keep going back and forth. And he says it just completely shifts the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm super curious on your thoughts on something like that.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think a lot of times the problem in communication is your main objective is to prove that you're right. And that's not what you want to do. What you want to do is come to a solution, right? You want to come together and fix a problem or fix an issue that has arisen. And so if you can put your ego aside and say, okay, I don't think I'm wrong, but is there at least a chance that I'm wrong? And I love that approach, but maybe even, depending on the scenario, you're like, okay, I can't think there's not a single thing I can think of that I did wrong, right? Because maybe it's something really small, and you're like, she was the one that did this. There's nothing I did wrong. But if you can just open up your heart to say, well, maybe I did something that I don't know about.
Yeah.
Maybe she did this not not because of what I did today, but something I did 2 weeks ago. So maybe I don't have the whole story. Maybe I don't have the whole side. And to, again, put aside my ego and say, me being right doesn't really matter. Of course, I love being right, just like everybody, but that's not the objective here, you know?
I want to stay on this topic of relationships and shift it a little bit, because I want to ask you, what is your advice to someone who's struggling with a relationship with themselves?
I think just like a relationship with somebody else, you've got to water it, you know, and depending on what that struggle looks like, it could be any number of things, you know. I'm sure for yourself, like I've heard you talk about, the gym is where you go for everything, right? To deal with emotions when you're sad, when you're feeling motivated, like every little thing goes back to the gym for you. And so for you, if something catastrophic happens and disrupts your life, maybe you stop going to the gym and that part of your life is no longer being watered, right? And then sometimes that can dovetail into other areas of your life. And so maybe you stop eating well.
Yeah.
And maybe you start binging 5 hours of TV at night, you know, and not to say everything is that insidious and, you know, makes your world implode, but I think a lot of times, there's so many different domains of our life, you know, whether it's work or your interpersonal relationships or your spirituality, your physical fitness, your finances, your hobbies, your interests. Like, you have to water all of these things. You have to give attention to all of them. And so if your relationship with yourself is, for lack of a better term, fractured, you have to start asking yourself some hard questions. You know, you have to say, well, what am I unhappy about? What is it in my life that is broken? What could use some attention? And maybe you're overwhelmed because you're like, everything in my life is broken. My life's a mess right now. So I say, okay, then that's great. You can start anywhere. You don't have to, it's not a mystery. You can say, well, what's one thing I can improve tomorrow? Yeah. What's something small I can work on? And to me, if you're like trying your best to progress in life, that's the best thing you can do for yourself and for your relationship with yourself. You know, self-love is kind of a whole other thing. You know, I think there's a lot of things you can do to increase your self-love, but if you're not happy with the way your life is going, that's the easiest place to start, you know? And I think anybody, no matter how successful or happy they are, they could look at their life and be like, what could I be doing that would really make this situation better, would make me feel more fulfilled, would make me feel happier? But sometimes those are hard questions, you know, to ask yourself, because the answers require a lot of work. Yeah.
No, thank you for that. You hit on a lot of good things. And I think you're right on a lot of that, because, you know, as much work as I've done on myself the past year, it comes down to asking yourself those tough questions. Yeah. Because until you can ask yourself those questions, you can't get to the source, right, or to the root of the cause. And so that's been a challenge for me as I've asked myself, but then taken on those, okay, this is what's going on. Now, how do I solve it? How do I work on that? I want to ask you, if I say the word anger, what comes to your mind? Is it something positive? Is it something negative? What do you think about?
Anger is not an emotion that I feel very often, honestly. I don't like it. It's, to me, anger is an emotion that often doesn't have a lot of utility. Yeah. You know, I think it's necessary every once in a while in sort of moments of protection. You know, somebody invades your house, you're going to be angry, right? Somebody's threatening your children, you're going to be angry. Yeah. Just kind of a natural response. But I think when someone else's interaction with you makes you angry, it's usually what they call a secondary emotion, right? The anger, if you really break it down, is often a result of sadness, you know? And so sometimes when something really small makes me angry, I have to ask, why in the world did that make me angry? Like, why am I so disturbed that like I can't get my TV to work?
Yeah.
You know, why am I so upset that my buddy was late for a dinner? Like, because I'm not usually that upset. It doesn't usually bother me that much, you know? And often it comes down to something that ultimately kind of makes me sad. And instead of feeling the sadness, anger is a little bit easier. It's a little bit easier to deal with. It feels less vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't have to admit hard things to yourself, you know, because sometimes when you really break it down, the sadness, you're sad about something because you're insecure about it, or there's some unresolved trauma or some healing that needs to take place. But it's just much easier to be like, to just be pissed off.
Yeah.
You know, would you agree with that?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
And I think there's a high that comes from being angry. And you experience that, you enjoy it, but then it's a crash. It's
you
hard.
Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Do you have a little temper?
Oh. I probably have one of the worst.
Really?
And the thing for me growing up that was hard is, and don't get me wrong, I still lose control of it here and there. But when I was younger and it was just flaring up all the time, I was always stronger and bigger than most people around me. So there was a fear that came with that. Yeah. And then on top of that, it's like, okay, you know, in society, they call it the angry black man. It's like, are you feeding into that stereotype? But then, you know, what are the consequences that follow when that then happens? And so a lot of it for me, it's one of the reasons why I went to that wilderness therapy camp. And it was so interesting because everyone else there was on drugs and coming off drugs. And that's the reason the drugs caused them to do these things. I was simply there for an anger problem.
You're just pissed off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not knowing how to cope with that, not knowing why was I pissed off. And it was such an interesting experience because I started off with a therapist. Every week you'd meet with a therapist. They'd come in, they'd talk. And my therapist at the time, she told my parents, she said, this isn't doing anything. He should go get sent home. So they took me back into the headquarters and I showered. And at the time it was when Boise State had just beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. And so they had Boise State clothes for me. And I could hear my parents talking through the door. And that therapist actually had ended up getting fired. And they brought in a new guy. And he's like, wait a second. No. This is something that we can work on and go to the root cause. And so they ended up having me go back. And as they told me, actually going back into the field, I ran to the door because I'm like, my parents are on the other side. And they tackled me. And it was so interesting because they blindfolded me and they drove me back. But they stopped on the way like a Dairy Queen and got me a cookie dough shake. And after 2.5 months of being in the wilderness with that shifted my whole mindset. Was just an ice cream. Yeah. And so coming back from that, that was the real time where I had to kind of address the anger. And now I find myself getting angry when it's in a situation I can't control or I have different expectations, not realizing I can't put my expectations on another person because, for instance, for me showing up on time, I'm like, okay, that's something that I always try and do. If my friend shows up late, it might not be in his value system that showing up on time matters. But I find myself getting angry about it and having the expectation if that's in my mind, it should be in everyone else's mind. Right. And so, yeah, it's been a journey working on the anger. And I've worked with the therapist and the coaching group and a human behavior specialist. And, you know, I've really honed down to anger isn't negative, which I've always thought. It's negative. It was positive. Sorry, it was negative. It was bad. And I've realized it's positive. And what I mean by that is it shows me what triggers me. Right. And now I know here's my trigger that I need to go work on and solve.
Yeah, I agree. I think I initially associate it with a negative emotion just because if it's untreated, right? If you're not recognizing that it's a trigger, then to me it's just bad energy, right? It's just negative. But yeah, if you're like, okay, I'm feeling pissed off. This is actually good because now I can kind of self-assess and be like, what is actually the root of the problem? Am I really so mad at my friend because he's 7 minutes late? Or maybe I have some issues with control, you know? Yeah.
No, exactly.
Why is it so upsetting for you to feel like a situation is out of your control?
I think because I like to be in control.
Yeah.
But I like to hold to a schedule. And when I don't have control, things can go south or right or left. And I I also feel like if I am in control, it will go my way.
Right.
Or I'll enjoy the experience more.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's an interesting thing to go through. Something I've been less and less, I guess, about as I've gotten older and learned just to be present and just let things flow and just let things happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And how I respond is up to me,
right, and
falls on me. And so, putting myself in that situations. I spoke to a coach once because I said, one of the things I struggle with is, unless I'm setting up plans, I never get invited to plans.
Mm-hmm.
And, he said to me, some people are meant to put things together and organize. Some people are meant just to attend. And he said, the beautiful thing is when you're the organizer, you never miss out on the plans.
Sure.
And so just shifting that mindset of, wait a second, it's okay if I organize everything because I get to experience it. I get to have my friends that I want there and I get to do something that I enjoy.
And maybe your circle of friends aren't planners.
Yeah.
They're not the people that organize. And so they're like, yeah, you're not going to get invited because we're not planning anything.
Yeah. I'm curious for you, with your experience and your knowledge, how have you chosen the right friends to surround yourself with?
That's a good question. I think it's funny. I feel like my first thought is it feels like luck. It feels like I've just been blessed from on high, but I think I also have to take some credit and say, to get good friends, you have to be a good friend, And so I think I've always valued depth in a friendship and closeness. And to me, that comes fairly easy. Like I'm happy to get deep with somebody. I'm happy to get really intimate. And so I think the byproduct is an ease with friendship, right? Yeah. It's almost like you can kind of pick and choose, when you meet somebody, if you're like, oh, I really like this person, like I feel like we have a lot in common or whatever. To me, you can kind of just say, all right, let's give it a shot. Yeah. Let's go hang out. Let's go get lunch. Let me invite you to something. And sometimes it doesn't super click, and you're like, oh, I still like this person, but they're probably not going to come into my inner sanctum, But I think there's an art to friendship. I think there's an art to making friends and an art to keeping friends. And I mean, think about the friends you love the most. It's like, why do you love them so much? Why do you love having them around? It's because they make you feel good.
Yeah.
They make you feel seen. They make you feel like important, And we all have friends that we're not super close with, but they're nice to have around.
Yeah.
They're kind of, maybe friends of friends, or maybe you've known them for years, but you just never got that close, but they're nice to have around. So you invite them to things. But, when you have those friends that you can talk to about anything and that it's more fun to be in the room with them than to not be, that's amazing. There's nothing like it. So I think partly I've just been blessed. I think making friends goes back to like your childhood and how you were raised in your home, how you interact with your siblings and your parents. That makes socializing in school much easier.
Yeah.
I think, kids that really struggle socially are kind of a little bit behind the eight ball, like, because if they're a little weird or a little ostracizing in school, they're going to go through high school having almost no friends. And then if they go to college or get into the workforce, they don't really know how to make friends. And so I think kids that are really good with friends at a young age have an enormous advantage. And I think playing sports and just being social and extroverted and somewhat funny just made it easy for me.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a really long answer.
No, I like that. I think you hit on a lot of things that I think a lot of people listening and watching this will relate to and understand when they've built out their circle. Now, a lot of people who know you have seen you as a podcast host, and through your answers, they can tell that you're a great relationship coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, who is Taylor Church if you remove all of that?
Dude, I'm the guy that just wants to hang. Like, you ask any of my close friends, I'm just down. Like, you want to go to dinner? I'm down. You want to just hang out and watch TV? I'm down. You want to go on a road trip? I'm down. You want to plan a trip to India? I'm down. Probably to a fault. Like, I remember there was a lot of years when I was in college and I was a little bit younger and I was fairly consistently broke, and I would have the hardest time turning things down because somebody would invite me to a trip and I'd be like, I for sure can't afford this, but let's do it. Let's go.
I'll find a way.
Yeah. And I'm also the guy that when we're hanging out, unless I have something else I'm getting to, I will never be the person that's like, all right, guys, it's getting late. Let's call it. Like, I'll be there till kingdom come.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious with what you just said is, where is the funnest place you traveled to?
I really loved India. I would say.
What part of India?
I was in like the northeastern part, New Delhi, pretty darn close to Nepal.
Okay. Did you go to the Taj Mahal at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I took my dad there right before the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, you see the picture and you're like, that's beautiful. When you stand next to it, you're just like, how?
It's really beautiful. And, getting there, it kind of sits near like just really cool villages and towns. And yeah, it's really cool. I loved India. I really loved Croatia.
Okay.
Croatia was amazing. I loved Poland.
Where's a place you haven't been that you want to go to?
I really want to go to Turkey.
Okay.
Not to get hair plugs because I have plenty of hair, but I was a history major in college, and so I love historical places and I love architecture and old churches, and Turkey's the confluence of Asia and Europe. So it's just a lot of cool stuff there.
With how busy you are and everything that you're doing, how do you find the capacity to continue to create content?
Mm-hmm. I mean, you know how it is. You have to develop systems, right? And my system is pretty, it's a lot of work, but it's very simple, I have an episode once a week. That week provides me usually about a week's worth of content, but I always have stuff for slower weeks. I have videos that I'm looking to repost. I have videos, I'm going on other podcasts. And so to me, there's just a never-ending sort of vault of content to share. And so anytime that I have a little idea, a little thought that I think I want to share, I just record it or I write it down. And sometimes I'm like, well, that's trash. And, but I'd way rather throw that away than to just have it dissipate from my brain. Yeah. And so, I'm busy, but this is my passion. And so I enjoy doing it. If it's, if it felt arduous, I don't know how long I could do this. I don't know how sustainable it would be. Yeah. And that's why it doesn't feel like a job, which sounds really cliche, but yeah, like I love making content because to me, content is art. It's a way of sharing yourself. It's a way of connecting with people. So it doesn't feel like, I got to make content today. It's like, no, I have stuff to share.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've talked about this before, but my episodes on my podcast are often like 2.5 hours long. And so I love that because there's an incredible amount of content in there, especially like my last episode was one of my favorite episodes I've ever done. It was with a close friend of mine, and I'm going through it. And I would say on average, most episodes have maybe 5 to 7 really good clips that I like and want to use. And I'm going through it and I'm like, there's probably 14 to 19 clips from this episode. Like, it's amazing. And so I'm just going to be, have all these, have 10 extra clips in the vault and just use them when I have time,
Have you, I'm super curious, have you ever had like a guest that you were excited and you had them on your podcast, and when the conversation started, you're like, this is awful?
That's a good question. Not quite. I don't think, I've had some guests that there was, a little lack of conversational chemistry, a little dryness about the interview, but they weren't guests I was excited about. They were guests that were kind of like, all right, we need to get somebody, or somebody canceled, so let's call this person. And yeah, sometimes it's a roll of the dice, you know, but to me, it's kind of a fun challenge. Like, if you have somebody across from you that you're like, all right, we don't speak the same language necessarily. We don't have the same passions. We don't maybe even want to talk about the same things, but this is a human being. Let me see what we can get out of this.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. But yeah, sometimes you finish an episode and you're kind of like, that wasn't great. Wasn't my best work. And sometimes it's funny with this guest I had the other week, when we were done, I told her, I was like, man, it is so easy to be a good host with a guest like you, because we just riff, we just talk, and they're asking me questions, and there's depth, and there's humor, and there's inside jokes, and there's all these things. And so you feel like, man, I am the best interviewer in the world. And then you get somebody on that you're kind of struggling with, and you're like, wow, I'm not very good at this,
So I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the fun thing is running a podcast. You get to have people on that you want to talk to and have conversations with, but then you get to share that with the world. And that's, for me, it's fun because it shows other sides of people that we don't usually get to see. I want to ask you, if there's someone out there who wants to get into content, but they're scared to be vulnerable and open themselves up to the world, what would you tell them?
Good luck. I think firstly, you have to ask yourself, why do I want to get into content? Is it because I want some validation? Is it because I like the attention? Is it because I like to make things and I want to share? I think sometimes people aren't really sure why they want to make content. Some of the people I'll coach people on making content. And a lot of times when we really break it down, they don't have a really good reason. It just kind of sounds fun or interesting or a change of pace from what they're doing.
Yeah.
And to me, that's all fine, but it's not sustainable because, as you know, like, content is a never-ending thing. You're not going to make it if you make a cool, fun post every 7 days. Yeah. You just won't. Yeah. Even if one surprises the world and goes super viral, people are like, hey, what do you got next? Yeah. And so to me, I always, when I'm like coaching people, I'm like, okay, first things first, we're not going to talk about strategy, about philosophy of posting or content. We're not going to talk about what works and what doesn't. The only thing we're going to do is see if you can post for 14 straight days, 2 weeks. Because if you can't, there's no point in moving forward and talking about strategy or talking about making sure you got good lighting or good audio. Like, let's see if you have what it takes, if you have some guts, if you have some gumption to really put stuff out every day. And as far as your question, if you're struggling with being vulnerable or you're worried about that aspect, you have to be able to say, okay, what I'm creating, what I'm sharing with the world, ultimately is not for my friends and family. Yeah. Right? The catch-22 is, in the beginning, those are the only people watching your videos because you have no following. And so that's what you're thinking when you're making a post. You're like, oh, well, my dad's going to see this and that's going to be so cringe. Yeah. And my buddies from high school are going to see this and they're going to roast me in the group chat. But your content's not for them, right? You're trying to grow an audience. You're trying to expand and get your stuff out there. It's not for them. So it's almost none of their business,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but it's hard because you have to, you know this, but in the beginning, that's the hardest period to grow. Like getting from 0 followers to 10K is the hardest thing in the world. And then your growth can really start to snowball, but.
Well, congratulations to you.
Oh, thanks, man.
You've been growing like crazy.
Thanks, dude. Yeah.
With that, I'm super curious. What is your most viral post?
Like how many views or which post? Like what are you at? What are you
Probably how many views?
I had one that was like 5 million, a couple that are like 4 million.
Do you remember what you were talking about?
I had one that was it was a quote that we were talking about. We were talking about friendship and how unique friendship is. So like, say there's me, you, and your camera guy, and say we're all 3 really good friends. The quote talks about how if I'm gone, your dynamic changes and your friendship changes and is increased when I'm here. But then when you're gone and it's just me and him, our friendship is different. And then when he's gone, it's just me and you, our friendship is different. Yeah. Just kind of that fun dynamic. And I think it just really resonated with people that have friends, which is almost everyone. And then it's funny, I've had one of my most viral videos ever didn't really get me many new followers. Like, you know how you can go on a reel and see how many followers came from that reel?
Yeah.
One of the most viral ones ever got me like 300-400 new followers. And I'm like, dang it, dude, this had like 5 million views. Yeah. But it just wasn't, it was more just catchy, you know, easy to rewatch, but it wasn't like, oh, I want to go see what this person's about. Yeah. And so that's the thing. When you're making content, you can't be obsessed with one video, you know, because even if it does go viral, it's not gonna change your life unless you keep making videos. Yeah.
Do you have anything that you either have chosen not to talk about or have struggled to talk about on your podcast?
There are topics that I shy away from just because that's just not the direction I want things to go, but it's not because I don't want to talk about it. Like politics is a great example, right? I'll talk about stuff with my friends. And if you ask me something really specific, if I'm knowledgeable about it, I'm happy to be like, yeah, this is, you know, I tend to lean conservative, you know, I tend to think this about this, but I don't want that to be the tone of my podcast. Yeah. So I usually just don't touch it. I would say the same with like, I talk a lot about faith and God, principles of the things I believe in, but I try not to make it dogmatic. I try not to make it religious. Yeah. Because I don't want to sound like I'm evangelizing. Yeah. Or like I'm trying to persuade somebody to go my direction, right? Mm-hmm. I just want to talk about universal truths that I believe in. And so, there's things that's what I really enjoy about going on like a guest podcast. I'm kind of like, yeah, we can talk about whatever because this isn't my show. Yeah. And on my show, like I'm happy to talk about whatever, but I ultimately have a specific tone and themes that I want to come back to. But on other shows, I'm like, yeah, we can kind of go wherever. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's huge. Yes, it's so interesting. You're right. Going from your own podcast to someone else's podcast. Mm-hmm. And then like the different types of podcasts. 'Cause I'm sure you've shown up and you have the people that have like the list of questions. Mm-hmm. And no matter what, we're going question by question. Right. And you have some where you just dive in and they have a few key points or topics. And it's, for me, it's fun. Yeah. It's fun conversation. Some are challenging because some it's like, okay, they asked me this question. What am I going to answer? Let me pull something good. But yeah, no, it is a journey. It is a struggle. Yeah. And a process.
Something I try to keep in mind as a podcaster is to not be just obsessed with the short form. Yeah. But to also be like the long form, the whole episode is actually really important too. Mm-hmm. And so I was talking to my producer about this. Some guests, they're amazing episodes, but they weren't great for short form. Yeah. sometimes, they're telling this amazing story, but it's a 20-minute story.
Yeah, you can't capture it.
And it's hard to clip. It's hard to kind of encapsulate. And some people, they watch the full episodes, and some people never do. They only watch short stuff. So I think you can get in trouble as a podcaster, as a creator, if you only care about the short form.
Yeah.
Because then you're just trying to it almost becomes clickbaity. You're like, okay, I'm only going to ask questions that will elicit amazing responses and quick, easy responses.
Or bring up something like the person went through a challenging time or a crime or something. It's like, this is a word that you'll say and everyone will click on it and do that. And it's, and I get the want behind people wanting to do that. But for me, it ruins the tone of the conversation and the depth. And you lose that authentic, hey, we're diving into a conversation here and we're just welcoming you guys into that conversation.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, I mean, you've been on my show, I will ask incredibly personal things to people. But it's about timing, and if you kind of pay attention, I usually don't do that till later in the interview when there's some comfort established, and there's some safety that's felt in the conversation. And so when you just come out of the gates and you're like, tell me the hardest thing you've ever been through. Guests are like, okay, do you who is this guy?
Exactly. Well, even when I came on your show, it was deep into the conversation and episode when you asked me to talk about the letter I had just written and posted about. And I'm like, had you started from the beginning like that, that probably would have changed the whole tone going forward. Yeah. But we had built up that rapport and had been talking, and you were right. As soon as you asked it, it was like, it just flowed. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to resist the temptation to ask something because you're like, it's not organic. Yeah. You can tell that I want some juice, and so sometimes I end an episode and I'm like, man, I really wanted to ask this thing, but I didn't, but that's okay because it just didn't, it would have been kind of forced. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Of all my guests that I've had, I've asked a lot this question, but with you, I'm super interested because of your knowledge of history and books you've read and things that you've studied and people you've even met. If you could spend one day with someone from history, dead or alive, who would that person be?
I mean, I'm gonna eliminate it's just too easy. I'm gonna eliminate Jesus Christ. Okay, because that's who I would spend the day with. If you want to talk more of that's for selfish reasons. You want to talk more of a historical figure. That's a really good question. I got the whole day with him in modern time.
Modern time.
Okay, so he arrives from a time machine. Gosh, there's some people that a lot of them it'd be a roll of the dice because you're like, I know what they accomplished. I don't know what they're like. I don't know if they'd be fun to hang out with, right? But imagine hanging out the whole day with Da Vinci. Yeah. Leonardo da Vinci, and you just kind of pick his brain. And I would love to be in the presence of a real bona fide genius, and a polymath, somebody that is so accomplished and intelligent in so many areas.
What's the first thing you wanted to know from them?
I don't know that it would be anything specific. It would just be like, tell me about painting the Mona Lisa. Tell me about the woman you were painting. Who is this woman? Help squash some rumors for me. Yeah. Were you did you have some scandals with I don't know, like Alexander the Great. That would be a really fun one. Napoleon, and again, some of them you might spend the day with. You're like, this is a bad choice, but to pick their brains and kind of get an insight into that part of history would be really interesting. More presently, I would love to like spend the day with like Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be, I'd have to do a half day with him because I feel like it'd be just a fire hose of information and knowledge.
I'd have to be really well rested, but yeah, I would love that.
Do you have a favorite quote you've heard from Jordan Peterson?
Gosh, most of the things I love that he says are like 5 paragraphs long, you know. I really love his books. His books have been really impactful for me. One of the favorite things that I talk about a lot is he talks about in relationships how in the beginning, like we were talking about earlier with communication, he said, if you have 1,000 fights with your partner in the beginning, you don't have to fight ever again, essentially, you know, meaning, okay, say we just got together and we've been married a week and there's immediately like some discord about who's doing the dishes or you're doing the dishes wrong or whatever. It's so small. You think, let me just do what she wants to do and we can go to dinner and not worry about this. But he's like, no, have the fight, have it now. And then you don't have to have it anymore.
Yeah.
You know, that fight is out of the way. And then something else stupid will come up and you'll hash it out and then you don't have to have it anymore. So he's like, in the beginning, you will have to have like 1,000 fights, but he's like, but if you can get through those peacefully, then you're not a couple that fights.
Yeah.
You're not a couple that is always pissed off about something, you know? And you know these couples that exist that there's always something that they're pissed about.
Yeah.
There's always like, you know, you ever hang out with a buddy and his wife calls and you can tell he's just like, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. What is it now?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, dude, that is my personal hell.
Yeah.
If that's ever me, just take me out back and let's be done with me, you know? Like, and to me, when I see couples like that, I'm like, they weren't willing to have those fights early on. And so now every little thing is kind of a little fight, but they don't really resolve it. They just compromise and are kind of pissed and then move on with their day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've had those experiences, especially going to sporting events and the wife keeps calling and I'm like, can we enjoy the game? Can we just be at the game?
Well, also listen, I love a woman that is a little bit of a golden retriever, right? I love a girl that's a little bit needy.
Yeah.
You know, meaning she just loves to be around me, loves to talk to me, loves to check in. But hopefully we've communicated enough that if she's calling me during a game or during something when I'm with the boys or whatever, I can answer and be like, hey babe, what's up? Like I'm watching the game with the guys. Like, what are you doing? What's going on? Is this quick? Cause I want to be with my friends, but maybe something serious is happening. Or maybe she just wanted to be like, oh, I just wanted to see if you're having fun. Okay, see ya.
Yeah.
You know, but if we don't have that established rapport, I'm just going to be like, it's not worth it. I'm not going to answer it because she's going to want to talk for 10 minutes, you know? Yeah. But if you have a good enough relationship where you can be like, hey babe, what's up? Like, I can't talk right now, but when I see your name pop up on my phone, I'm actually excited. Yeah. Even if I'm busy, I'm excited. That's what I want.
No, I know. When you have that, when you see the name pop up, you get that goosebumps. And you're busy, but you know you want to answer it.
Right.
And find a way to answer it. No.
Yeah. If you're dating somebody and their name pops up on your phone and you get this little like feeling in your gut, this bad feeling, break up with that person. Yeah. Like if you're a little bugged or apprehensive when they're calling or texting you, see ya.
What is the number one song you listen to when you go through a breakup?
Oh man,
because I'm a big Adele guy. I'm blasting Adele. Like I had a buddy, me and him both went through breakups, and so we went over to a sweat house and did the cold plunge in the sauna. Mm-hmm. So you have 2 grown men, and we're blasting Adele, top of our lungs, just letting it out.
Yeah, there's a bunch. I have some pretty sad playlists, but I really like Chelsea Cutler.
Okay,
she's got she had an album that really tore me apart during our breakup. You ever heard of Dean Lewis?
Uh-huh.
Dean Lewis has some heart-rending songs. I'm a big Taylor Swift guy. I'll be the first to admit
Swiftie,
it.
okay.
Yeah. I've always been a lyrics guy too. So there's some Adele songs I love. I'm trying to think. I have a playlist that's called College Heartbreak.
Okay.
And it's like just songs from my college days. And a lot of them are just kind of these 2000, these mid 2000s pop punk type songs. Right. And yeah, some of them just
Maybe some Maroon 5 in there.
Maybe one or two. There's not a ton of Maroon 5. Okay. But yeah, there's I love when I'm going through a breakup, I want to feel my feelings.
Yeah.
Right. I want to feel those emotions. And sometimes really sad songs, they make you feel like, wow, that person really knows what I'm going through, and they expressed it in a really cool, unique way, So some people, they want to avoid sad stuff when they're sad.
Mm-hmm.
And I obviously don't want to sit and sulk forever, but when it's fresh, I want to feel like I'm not the only person feeling this emotion.
Yeah.
And so I remember there was this song by, I think it's Dean Lewis, but he was in the chorus, he's saying, and I'm not a singer by any means, but he was saying in the refrain, like, I still love you, which is such a simple thing.
Uh-huh.
But he was just like belting it out, and you could feel the pain in his voice.
Yeah.
And because I was going through that similar pain, I was like, yes, Dean, my guy,
Mm-hmm.
like you get it. You know, it's a way to sort of commiserate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that. Music is big for me. It's interesting. When I go through my phone, every song that I have is tied to a memory.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I remember a trip, I just throw the song on, and it could be good or bad. But so when I go through my playlist, it's everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm so intentional with my music. Like when I go to the gym, I listen to Disney.
Really?
Because what I found is it's not my music that drives me at the gym, because I'll be benching to the Little Mermaid.
Mm-hmm.
And so if my phone died or I forgot my music, I can still go through that movement, because it's not the music that was motivating me and pushing me through each time. Now, don't get me wrong. It's nice to have music.
Yeah.
And sometimes I do throw on the rock or the hip hop, but yeah, I've been just Disney.
Really?
Yeah. My friends call me weird, and I'll show them.
Is it just because it is relaxing and is music that is nostalgic and you can kind of ignore? Like, yeah, what is the reason?
I think it's, I listened to something David Goggins said, and he talked about he works out without music because he doesn't want it to be a crutch.
Yeah.
And so I kind of built it off that, but then it became more of the gym is my place where I think, where I can relax. And so, that Disney music takes me back to being a kid, takes me back to childhood, which is, a lot of happy memories and that innocence. Yeah. And so for me, it's just been a flow that's worked. Yeah. And that's why I never do share play at the gym with a buddy.
Right.
I'm like, you're not going to want this. You don't want these songs while we're lifting. Sorry.
Dude, you should. I know you don't make maybe a ton of it, but you make some gym content, right? You should do some things where you go around and ask other people like, hey, do you want to guess what I'm listening to?
I like that. I like that.
Because no one's going to guess it.
That's a good idea. Okay. I'll go do that. I might do that today.
Yeah, do it today.
I got the gym later today. I might do that.
Right.
First, I just want to say thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, of course.
I feel like I could talk with you for hours, and I appreciate the value that you've given me and my audience, but also you give your audience and the things that you're willing to share. If there's someone who's listened to this and they're like, I need to connect with this guy. I have some questions in a relationship that I'm struggling with, or some things in my life that I'm struggling with. How can I get in touch with you? Yeah,
just I would say Instagram's the easiest way, Taylor Church 44. I'm everywhere you can find someone on the internet, if you prefer Facebook or TikTok or YouTube or Spotify, whatever, you can find me. The podcast is Of Stone and Clay, but yeah, hit me up.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. Yeah. And I'm excited to dive in.
Of course, man.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us on Man on the Mic. If this episode brought you value, share it with someone who needs it, and make sure you're subscribed. Man on the Mic is streaming on all platforms, so wherever you listen or watch, you can find us. I'm Jeff Mann. Grateful you're here, and we'll see you on the next episode.